well.
Old school, old school. What's going on, family? It's another edition of our 6 to 7 radio hour. We want to say thank you to all our listeners, old and new. We appreciate you all just the same. Also, thank you for spending your Monday evening tuned in to the Knowledge, Understanding, and Wisdom radio show. A lot of you all that may want to call in, feel free to give us a call, 816-599-6893. 816-599-6893. Also, if you want to see what we're doing and what we're about as far as in the neighborhoods and the community, go to www.oldschool.com. Help support what we're out here trying to do as far as looking at some of our CDs, candles. We also have great sweatshirts, hoodies, and t-shirts. Just so you show your old school love and support for it. No one else cares for you, we do. Back today, we're going to conclude on our United Snakes of America, and it's furthering the conversation and the topic we had last week about miseducation. To start off miseducation, I'll have my brother Deron come in, and he'll start on, because I just basically wanted to know when you started to diagnose or start to see the symptoms of how miseducated we are as a nation and a race of people today.
Well, I have to do it for my generation, for where I come from. I'm not sure I'm coming through on the microphone, to be honest.
Yeah, you're on that.
Okay. Yeah, I have to do it as it's relevant for me. I think that's the truest way to do it. I have to say that when I went out into the world, so to speak, and encountered racism, I was in grade school, and I really didn't have any knowledge of it. And so we have to say, what is it going to be like for a kid in the world who doesn't have knowledge of the racial history, the racial existence, how racism and race exist in this world? So the day I probably recognized it was when I found out that it wasn't just about the kind of person I was. Like, are you funny? Do I like to be around you? Do you, are you a mean person? Are you not trustworthy? See, these type of things when you're in your pure mind, these are the things you think about.
Mm-hmm.
But then when you find out that it's not just about these traits, the first time you experience that, and for me it was kindergarten,
Mm-hmm.
where I experienced someone didn't like me and wanted to separate, and for whatever reason,
Mm-hmm.
So I guess it was then I had to make a decision. Was it because of something that I had that was a privilege,
Mm-hmm.
or was it something that someone else had because of an insecurity?
Well, what I'm going to do is, and again, we don't want to hurt the feelings of any of our listeners, and we're basically just in a position to give back to you all what was given to us, and we have to give it back, because everything that I was given is what has made me and this brother who is speaking to you today. And it was knowledge, because I was a very miseducated young man myself back in the day. But what I wanted to just go off of, what I'm basically going to say, is miseducation. Do we need the regular prescribed medicine, or do we need a higher dose of an antibiotic? Now, what I'm saying with that is for instance, a lot of us that have little kids know if your kids get strep throat or they get sick, they'll take you'll take them to the doctor, and they'll do their check their height, weight, check to see if they got a fever, look at their throat, strep culture or whatever that is that they do, and then they normally say, okay, yeah, it looks like it might be strep, and they'll give you a little bottle, a prescription to go get a bottle of that old cheap pink amoxicillin. And so what starts to happen, um, several days later, it's getting worse and the fever has been broken. So you've got to go back in, and they're going to offer you a higher dose of an antibiotic. And what I'm basically saying is when you look at the neighborhoods, the community, and the nation, our cities, all of our ghettos throughout the United States, right now, I really believe within my heart, we need a higher dose of an antibiotic for the mental miseducation that most of us are under. When I say that and I go and I look at the regular medicine has been, and again, it's not to offend or hurt anyone, but let's say, for instance, the higher dose of antibiotics that really worked for me and several brothers like myself, Malcolm X, Marcus Mosiah Garvey, Medgar Evers, Honorable Louis Farrakhan, Noble Drew Ali, Malachi Z. York, and there's so many more that we can name down the list. And when I sit back and I realize and I look at the symptoms that are plaguing us in our own communities and even in our own homes, I go as the regular prescribed medicine that has been here since we've been on these shores, including today. Because right now, as a race of people in a nation, we are worse off today than we've been in a very, very long time. And so I ask myself, does sitting in a building on Sunday, receiving a loud, hollering, preaching of a word, and then singing emotional song-filled songs, and to go back home, and our homes are still in the same condition that they were and have been since we've been doing this. We're looking at the news. We're seeing how many people are dying in the city of Chicago and throughout the streets. Even when our gang epidemic in the United States was as big as it was in the 80s, a lot of this regular medication have been around, and I don't think that we've seen any benefits from that. And is it really going to be able to help? And as I talked to my brother today, he told me that he feels we have lost our sense of self and to be able to have a knowledge to know that we can prevail. And when I say we lost a sense of self and a knowledge to prevail, go ahead and just speak on that just for a little bit and tell me what you was talking about today.
Yeah, I think when you prevail, you're overcoming an opposition, an opposing force.
Mm-hmm.
And I presume that anything trying to live is going to have something that goes against it. You know, we break it down to a real simple point. When you get out in the wild, you have, various forms of the ecosystem. You have animals trying to survive. Some get eaten, some chasing and are trying to eat, And so we have to be honest and say, what is our existence like here? What is the opposition? What is the oppositional force? When we talk about us as a collective. So I guess you have to say, what collective are you part of? I don't want to be too rhetorical, but I really don't know sometimes. I feel part of a black community, but I see the spirit of the black community is wounded. And sometimes it's to the point to where it doesn't seem like there's any will to thrive, and either everybody else is trying to either get away from being black and find something else to be associated with, but yet and still there's an existence that is black, that the powers that be don't seem to want to comply or bring a part of the American dream,
And it's funny you said that, because I'm going to take, what is our modern day thing? They talking about if you're not being hated on, you're not doing nothing, or is that what that means? Or if you're not considered a threat to, let's keep it real, the government and the FBI, evidently you must just be going along to get along. The Panthers were a threat.
Yeah.
Malcolm X was a threat. Marcus Garvey, me and you both know, was a threat.
Yeah.
Honorable Louis Farrakhan is a threat. And I ask myself, not only are these people hated by the common enemy and the so-called government, but they even hated by some of our own people.
Absolutely.
And though when you sit back and listen to what these people have to say, Malcolm X's message is more relevant today than it was when he gave the message. And back when he gave the message, the world at that time between the black community was divided. You had half with Martin Luther King and you had half with Malcolm X. Malcolm X was by any means necessary, and Martin Luther King was, you can hit me, I'm a non-violent, I'm gonna turn the other cheek, and whatever. And I've always said if I had to be on the side, what side?
Yes.
I'm with Malcolm by any means necessary. But when I sit back and I realize that when we do become educated and we start to speak and teach and uplift our people from this fallen state of humanity that we are in, we become a threat. And I guess we always say that we would keep it real. So for a lot of people that may be listening, I want everyone to be able to understand this. And my brothers always told me that I've been very good at being able to make pictures and movies within the mind or whatever. But let's just say, for instance, the miseducation. If we had a guy that was in the neighborhood and he was so-called grooming, demoralizing, dehumanizing, basically out there pimping the young girls.
Okay.
If there was a group or a few individuals that would be able to make these young women understand who they are, understand their self-worth, knowing what their value is, to be able to stand up and want to be able to claim and have their own righteous place in the world, if that by all means is the way that this man makes his income, when do you think you're going to be on his radar to become a threat to what it is that he's doing? Because the more that you wake up, the lighter his pocket gets. Now, let's go back and look at the world to this day. If we were truly able to go to some places and get this higher state of antibiotic that would make you leave feeling empowered to not only want to be able to take back your neighborhoods and your communities, but also change your home, change the way you view your sister and brother. And what you said to me today on the phone was so cold, because some of us as black men, the only thing we have in common with each other is because we're creating pain, murder, misery, and death.
Yeah.
And that is what we have in common with each other. For the most part, it goes back to, as we said last week, that no matter any race of people, whether it's the Aboriginal Indian, the Hispanics from the Latino community, you look at the Jewish, a lot of people are going to always let you know what wars and everything that they had to overcome to put them in a place and a position and a mind state that they are in today. They're going to let you know the history of it.
Right.
But it just seems like when the so-called African and man and woman speak about the travesty, our Holocaust, the unfair and equal opportunities that have been presented to us today, and when we go back to speak on history, to say what we went through as a race of people, because it's still affecting us today, nobody wants to hear it. Or it becomes, oh man, that happened way back then and you gotta let that go. And then you have some white Americans that don't want to hear the subject. And I've come to resource and study that I think the reason that some people are so hurt by when we have to reflect on where we came from, that they know the blood that runs through and ran through who did that is the same blood that runs through them. And it becomes an uncomfortable situation. It becomes embarrassing. It becomes to say, well, I didn't have anything to do with that, and you know, whatever. But
Yeah.
which I mean, to this day and time, a lot don't. But to show that it's 2018, August 27th, and all of a sudden we get a character in office to be a leader of this nation out of nowhere, patriotic racism has just shown its head.
Yeah.
Everybody is claiming in the closet racism because they're saying that it represents their flag, what the country stands for, and basically, let's make America great again.
Yeah.
To show how we're miseducated is because it's like he said in Boys in the Hood, either they don't know, it don't show, or they don't care what's going on in the hood. And as far as our people, either we don't know, we don't want to know, or we don't care to know. But you have NFL players that are being persecuted, their jobs are being threatened, and they're being fined for peacefully protesting unjustifiable acts currently up under this so-called flag and even Lady Liberty. And in the weeks going on, we'll speak on Lady Liberty, because if we were to lift up the dress of the Statue of Liberty, there's a lot of things that's up under her dress that were really a dirty situation.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, when these NFL players are threatened and traded off teams, and they're fined and they're threatened that they won't have a job, in the same sense, the so-called police can escort and protect racially motivated hate activists. You got hate activists shooting guns in crowds. You got people out there screaming out rhetoric, slurs, and whatever. And so it's just one of those type of things that it makes you just go to say, what type of antibiotic do you think we need for the mental condition that we're in now? And back when we were growing up, like the book we got here right on the table, Marcus Mosiah Garvey, what happened to our households having these kind of books? You know, what happened to, no matter what we played out, how long we played outside, or what we watched on TV, we knew prominent black people. You know, we knew from what we was taught in school. And so right now, to get this antibiotic that we need, we're not going to get it into the school. We're not going to get it at the school, because we know what the curriculum is in the school. It's history, his story. And we're in a day and time where we're being slaughtered in the streets. We've been made a mockery on television. We actually see that it's white and black. And I think when a lot of us really sit down and we do realize who our common oppressor and our modern day enemy is, it's no more being able to say he's in the ground with a pitchfork and horns, and this is what you're going to see when you leave. You see what I'm saying? Because when you look at the hell that we have been through and what we've caught since we've been on these shores, I mean, man, could it be any worse?
You know, that's a, you know, you listen and you try to be open-minded, and you hear different thoughts, and there's actual thoughts out there who say that black people have had it good here, and it even goes any further, and there's people who say that it was a gift to be here because we were in a worse situation. So when you have people who live by these philosophies, live by them, bro, live by them, die by them, pass them on to their children, this is custom. You have to look at who's your family. You have to, because we can't continue to be in this existence that either black people are prevailing or black people are suffering under white supremacy. You can't exist within that space. You can't coexist there. That's not healthy for mental health. So there are going to be people who are living in the existence of a prevailing community. And these people are going to be around them are going to be black. And a lot of people believe they're going to be multicolored. and that these individuals around me are they're breaking bread with me and my children. We talked about that.
Yeah.
It's neighbors who let me borrow water hoses, let me borrow lawnmowers, and these are people doing day-to-day things. And then there's going to be people who say, you know, I can't mobilize myself in my life because of opposing forces. You know, and that's one place that I guess I'm continuing. I got children. I'm continuing to be mindful of where is our constituency at.
Well, it goes back to say a man who stands for nothing falls for anything.
All right.
It's when you sit back and we talk like we iterated last week about Rosewood and the interview I told you I found on YouTube about the lady at the time that was a survivor of Rosewood. Not only that, man, when you go back and you just look at, for instance, the police department, is it a code? Is it a brotherhood?
Yeah.
Because to show you how it is corrupted and foul, when we go back and we take a look at the Rodney King beating, if memory serves me right, I think it was over 7 to 8 officers beating this man.
Yeah.
And so for some of the officers that didn't participate in the beating, there were no attempts to stop the other officers.
Yeah.
And why is that?
Yeah.
Why is it that the so-called Negro that gets a job on the police department, he can be right out here and see something going on in malicious acts, and is it something or a penalty he'll pay if he steps across the threshold to intervene, to say that person had enough?
Yeah.
Or this is something that is not deserved? I mean, why does everybody just sit back, allow it to happen, and then the chief of police gets on, or whoever, the captain of the precinct gets on and says, well, we apologize for what happened, and we're going to look into the situation in the matter, and it's not all the police officers, it's a few bad apples.
Yeah.
But every time we're seeing somebody killed and beat down in the street, it's a few bad apples.
Yeah.
It's a few bad apples in Texas, Kansas City, Chicago, St. Louis. I mean, come on, man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like I said, a lot of things that when we say we're miseducated, even to the annual robbery of these holidays. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We fall in suit to the biggest pimp game here in the United States every year. Almost every day that we go off and spend our money on things that when we buy things and we do get them home, the value's depreciated depending on what it is that you purchased. But when we go, for instance, and in days, we will speak on what these holidays symbolize and what they mean. But you got New Year's Day.
Yeah.
Where the so-called Negro can't wait till midnight to go out and shoot his guns. And don't know the meaning behind it. I don't think most of them do. But it's just something that they've seen and known's been done since they were able to comprehend. Let's look at St. Patrick's Day. Because I want you all to listen to these holidays that we're mentioning, because we're going to bring some information in the upcoming weeks to let you know what it is that you're celebrating and what you're being a part of. You got, let's go back to Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
Valentine's Day is a very big one, even though they tell us it's Cupid and, shoot somebody with an arrow and fall in love. But you've got St. Patrick's Day. You've got Easter, which even if you look at the main print of Easter, there's no one that can ever say that they've seen a rabbit lay eggs and how that is the symbolism of that holiday. I can't go, then they go on down the list, even to December 25th, which is Christmas, and that's going to be one that's going to draw a lot of rave reviews when we speak on that.
Yeah.
Because from the knowledge and information that we have on that day, too, it was also a celebration and a birthday for Nimrod. So we want to make sure that a lot of the things that we're doing, and when we say the miseducation, It's even what TV can do, what the television, not television, but television can be able to do to the young children. The subliminal messages through movies and things that we're watching. Um, a lot of the ways that they're using to transmit through these signals and these ultraviolet rays through these TVs. And then you wonder why you look up today and the young men in our community are dressing more feminine than some of the women that we see out here in the streets. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There's so much. And then, of course, miseducated when we don't have the father figure or a dominant black male in the home. There's no one to teach. And so, therefore, we allow our children to be taught by who we hope should do good or who we think should do good. And then, when we find out that our children have been up under the leadership or the teachings of these certain individuals, then you start having situations like you got in Philadelphia. Mm-hmm. All of these bishops and all of these so-called spiritual men are messing with these boys and these babies.
Now, is that something that we should definitely get long-winded in on this show? Because that's a major conversation.
No.
That, probably, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, I know we have to. We have the half hour approaching, and it's customary that we take a break. I don't know if you want to lead us into that.
Well, what we'll do is, again, if we have anyone listening would like to call and participate on the show, 816-599-6893. We are at the halfway mark, so we will go out on a commercial break, and we'll be right back. All right. Thank you if you stuck through the commercial break and you're back with us. And we know and we've talked about that this may be one of our segments that may be, I guess, less pleasing or ear candy, but it's relevant. These situations and topics need to be spoke about. I'm in the position I am in because someone took it upon themselves to give me some information that changed my life. They gave me some information that I didn't know when I didn't know myself. I didn't know exactly who I was, didn't know where I came from, didn't know how I was contributing into the pain and also the ensnaring traps that were set out here, not just for myself, but young black males. Even when we sit back now and we go to say, a lot of us have uncles and cousins that are incarcerated for selling marijuana. And now 2018 is legal in so many different states. And I mean, it's crazy, man, that when, I guess, how did Malcolm say it, bamboozled, the wool is being pulled over our eyes. And I mean, this trick and this corporate economic pimp has ran this nation and the so-called Negro in their community for a very, very, very long time. And though we are not wanted here and have never been wanted here, you are valuable because of the idiocracy, the ignorancy, the miseducation, the stupidity of how we spend our money, how we don't invest in ourselves, in each other, in our community, how we don't give back, how we don't break bread, how we don't like ourselves.
Yeah.
We don't like how we look, because if we did, a lot of us wouldn't be dressed up in this buffoonery and monkey suits and clowning. I mean, look at the way we look, man, and how we're doing. Back in the 60s, in times with, and I should know this, I got so much on my mind. What's my sister, man, that boycotted on the bus? Rosa Parks.
Yeah.
Do you see how far back then to boycott the buses it all took effect?
Yeah.
And how quick we were able to stand in unity and defense for our sister? And for a lot of people that really, really, really wanted to understand and know why the prominent leaders we had at the time, which were Malcolm and Martin, were assassinated, is because Martin was getting ready to deliver a very, very powerful message, which was also going to obtain a worldwide boycotting of, I think, if I got to go back and do my history and my research, I think it might have been like on the Wonder Bread or the food or something. It was something very major.
Yeah.
And the powers that be truly felt that if the message was to be delivered, see, what we have to understand, and it's just the same thing with the NFL. If we were to boycott the NFL and take our dollars and our time away from the NFL would crumble. Even if the so-called players that make up 75% of the NFL, if they all would stand their ground and support their brother from sacrificing himself and his career to bring insight on the injustices in the community, what do you think they could do to everybody? You think they can't fire everybody?
Yeah.
And sooner or later, these ticket holders and people that have these sold out seats are gonna want to see who they paid their money to be able to see.
Yeah.
But again, we're to a state to where if it's not happening in our home or to direct people that are in our company, it's almost like we're so numb and we don't care. And what I mean by that is, till this day, I can still cry and shed a tear when I think about Katrina. To see my people on the roofs, to see my people being eaten by alligators, to see my people in the Superdome, and at that time the president to just fly over and look out of the window. And of course, throughout everything that was broken and tore up there, the Superdome was like a priority to be back open for business.
Yeah. I got a thought on that.
What?
So you mentioned the Superdome being a priority, and the fact is that, some of the things we talked about last week is to live in this land is to believe, you would think is to believe that you can take part in the protection of the land. And we know that all races have fought in the wars. Even the Native Americans have been very celebrated with the code that was spoken, the Navajo code that was spoken during the World Wars.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody has fought because they believe that there's some benefits, right? There's some benefits. Otherwise, why is there opposition? Why have opposition with someone if there's no benefits? Go ahead.
That leads me to ask you, how can you go and spill your blood and guts for a country only to come back here, and as soon as you step off the airplane, you spit on, you call the N-word,
Yeah.
colors over here, whites over here, We don't serve colors. I mean, when you think about it, that's a cold demonstration, bro.
Yeah. So I mean, again, what is what is the privilege? What is there to get out of it? You know, we have to say at this point in time that we are an exceptional people. We've gone through, and I didn't get that verbiage for myself. There's a brother who's done a lot of research on reparations, and what reparations really is a corrective action. A lot of people are scared of the word reparation. There's something. There's a chess narrative being played on the word reparation. But when you talk about correction, correction is absolutely essential, especially in cases of trauma or abuse. There has to be something done to get the abuser away from the victim. There has to be something done to empower the victim. Otherwise, there's going to be be opportunity for this to reoccur. That's one. So there has to be corrective action in the race interaction. People go away with these thoughts. They have thoughts that were seeds planted during these times. And one of the things that we talked about, and let's just maybe, we don't have a whole lot of time, but if we stay long, we stay long, which is we all have thoughts that come from the church. We all have thoughts that come from the church. And we have to say that that aspect that is hurting us, we have to allow ourselves to be empowered in order to move away from that aspect that's hurting us. Now, that which has given us life and has given us a custom, especially a custom that we feel convicted, that comes from all that is good, that comes from the church, we have to keep that. And so we have to encourage our people to stay close to the Lord, especially during these days and times. I am going to step out on that because they're going to become disenchanted, and they're going to become enchanted by the narrative that is the church is no good. And the way it's been taught to us is that the face of the church is also God. It's going to get very convoluted, but the higher source that has allowed us to prevail, that's where we got to connect to, bro. And that's all I want to talk to, because there's a lot going on that I would never want to leave my child alone with anyone who seems to be radical about the establishment of the church, because and that's just how I feel, because you have to go into it with balance and understand it. It's not that people are going to fail, even if they say they're filled with the Holy Spirit, or even if they say whatever they say to try to persuade other people are going to fail. That's just the reality, wherever they're in the church or whatever it may be.
Well, I look at the word that you use, which is empowerment. And I think when you have a miseducation for a great book that I am out there reading, which is Carter G. Woodson, The Miseducation of the So-Called Negro. There are a lot of things that we are miseducated on. And I really feel that if we had avenues and resources for the mass people to get the true education that they need, that education alone within itself, not only does it make you stand prideful, it makes you love who you are. And who you are, once you realize who you are and recognize who you are, then it's so easy for you to be able to look at the next one with your color and look at them as your sister and brother.
Yeah.
Not, the attitude and the mugging of faces and, like, who is this? I mean, it's so much hate. And when we go back and we just look to see the common enemy, one thing that really devastated us, and we spoke in some series a while back, was the 80s and the crack epidemic.
Yeah.
That was a very big plan to have these communities infiltrated with these cheap strands of drugs.
Once again, we're not prepared for disasters. You mentioned the Katrina, then you mentioned the crack epidemic. There seems to be these disasters that are taking place on this soil, and we lack the proper protection. We lack the proper preparation. Just a thought.
Because if you are educated, you don't just live for the day. You know, you have to try to be able to think outside of the box. You have to be able to look at everything under a microscope.
Yeah.
Use your third eye.
Yeah.
You know, which is the cerebral cortex of the brain to put us on a deeper astral plane. Listen,
Yeah.
I mean,
okay.
It
And,
goes
what's
so
your name?
much deeper than what we can recognize, and this is where you
Alrighty.
have
Hold
to
on just a
give
second.
your people, your children, your family. You've got to educate them. Hold on, looks like we have a call.
King Tia.
Hello, caller.
Hello.
Hey, what's going on? How you doing this evening?
Pretty good. Just tuning in.
Oh, thank you for that, man. There's a lot of other things you could be doing on a Monday, and you decided to spend a little bit of time with us. Go ahead, and we're listening to you.
Come again.
I said, go ahead and speak what's on your mind and your heart. We're listening to you.
What's on my mind? I like to say I definitely agree with us being educated. Also understanding who we are and where we come from is a pivotal point to get to the next stage that we got to get to. Because there's many examples in history that show our greatness. But if we aren't exposed to that greatness, then it's hard for us to understand that about ourselves. So I think that root way to find that is definitely through education of ourselves. Now, I appreciate you even speaking on that, putting that out there for the people, because I mean, you know, we all been lost at one time, I would say, and even like the brothers talking about, we're following the Lord. You know, if we don't even understand that connection there, you know, we'll still be lost as well. So that's just my little 2 cents on what's been going on the show.
Hey, well, thank you very much. And like I said, I appreciate just a lot of other things you could be doing on a Monday evening, and for you to be listening to us and tuned in and give us a call. I really appreciate that. I'll try to get in contact with you, and probably love to have you be a guest if you will. And this is King, right?
Caller, you still with us?
Thank you, drop.
All right.
We got another one.
I did.
So again, it is. I mean, though television has made us for years accept that we've been the background,
Yeah.
the butlers,
Yeah.
the robbers, the drug addicts, anything inferior to the common supremacy of TV. A lot of us that know ourselves know that we don't find that.
Yeah.
We know that that's
we
not
often
true.
talk about, you know, what do we look like in front of the world? You know, or most of all, how do you make something so simple to where a child can understand it? Because then you know your yay is your yay and your nay is your nay. You're not trying to hoodwink.
Listen.
So if we talking about making it simple, what do we look like to the world? I'd say that we barely get anything on credit. We don't get a life jacket when we need it. These are common occurrences. And you said it last week. What is welfare backwards?
Farewell. And so is that basically meaning when you say, what do we look like to the world in most of America? That's when you start to have people from other countries come into our neighborhoods, open up businesses and have stores, and they hate everything about you from the time that you walk through the door until you leave. And every dollar that they make is taken to get back home or to fulfill and take care of the area where they're living at. You know?
Yeah.
And it's one of those type of things to where, like, I mean, hey, if it's that type of party where everybody can hit, everybody's gonna hit.
They're gonna take their chance.
And
yeah.
we've all, the so-called Negro of the United States of America, have been laying down with our legs wide open, and everybody can hit.
So you saying we all got our hands dirty?
It depends on, I know what dirty you talking about, but
Yeah.
I'm gonna say,
So you want me to clarify? Or you want
go
me to know?
ahead and clarify.
So, you know, we have to understand, and then, like you said, maybe this is biting off some stuff, but we have to understand that there are discretions that are not to be apologized for as an American. You know, we talked about it last week. When you think about it, this is stolen land, but we don't have any action to correct that. It's taboo to have corrective action to bring justice to the Native American cause. There's more than that exists. There are military men and women who are coming home every day who are saying, man, I just don't have an agreement. You can find documentary after documentary, or at least you can hear some type of story of post-traumatic stress from military men and women when they talk about the things that they have to do. This is humanity is going to keep pushing into this, and what we have to say is that when you talk about trying to apprehend the minds of people or imprison the minds of people, control the way they think and their opinion, it gets more nasty. It's not. It is no longer. I think we're really done. I think what makes war so nasty is no longer are we probably going to be in uniforms shooting across plains and deserts. Now war has become so much it's your next door neighbor. It could be even your family member with conflicting thoughts.
Okay, and to reiterate on that, remember when I said, do we need the regular prescription or do we need a higher dose of antibiotic? And I want the antibiotic for me, for my children, for people I'm cool with. I want the antibiotic that Muhammad Ali took. The antibiotic that Muhammad Ali took, he said, hey, man, I'm not going thousands of miles away to shoot a brown or a yellow man. When that man over there ain't never called me the N-word. Do you see?
No, absolutely.
No,
clear.
I mean, for real, this is where it gets deep.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? We going thousands of miles away to sacrifice ourselves. To only come back here where every day that you hear, they letting you know we don't want you.
Right.
You starting to see evidence of it now on TV. I mean, we got a character in office who's giving the green light for these people to start to come out. And they're coming out, and it's racism all up under patriotism. You see what I'm saying?
Well, I mean, it's not. I mean, it has to be like that, but there is some genuine spirit in that. I tell you, because the country was very clear when it said in the beginning who it was to serve and who it was to offer. Even Italians came here with not being offered the opportunity to be of the people. Irish came here and were pushed out of the opportunity to be of the people. And so there was a time and period where they were allowed to come in and be of the people. That is, those who were protected by the watchmen or the policemen. That is, those who were protected and given welfare in form of self-empowerment. There's always been welfare in this nation, which has been in the form of self-empowerment. That is, whether it was land grabs, that is, whether it was preferential lending. These things have always existed. And welfare will always exist in this nation. It's just going to be who is going to be those of the people. And then we have to ask ourselves, how long can you have mental health and say, well, we're going to hate on those people, but we're going to befriend these people based off of what truth?
Well, and I look to go back to what you just said because it was really tight. That right there caught my attention. For 450 plus years of free servitude, labor, and everything, I find it hard to realize when there is so many people's work that is truly put in to the benefit of this country. Why are they the ones that the welfare is being missed and hated so much? I mean, you got to.
These are things are very evident, very obvious.
Yes, because we placed very big. We gave a lot.
We gave a lot
for this country.
Yeah, and the reality is that we're exceptional people because there's already been attempts for this type of experiment to take place the way it is. It's kind of like when you're putting in that process. I've never had a process put in, but I learned about it through that Malcolm X scene. Yeah. So Malcolm X put that hot wax on his head, and he had to be able to handle and sustain the heat that it was bringing to his scalp
Yeah.
and to his strings of hair. And eventually it got so irresistible that he didn't care what kind of state he put himself in. He just wanted to be able to get it done. So he dived himself in the toilet at the very end. So the American experience has already been tried throughout history. It was only successful at our backs. At our backs. They've got a composite of intelligence. They got a composite of strong mind and strong body that was able to resist, to totally take away their humanity, but yet still be able to bounce back and have humanity. We were the only ones in history to be able to do that. Everybody else got beat down. They got beat white, and you white now. Or they got beat religiously or whatever. We always seem to maintain a uniqueness about us, that we're unapologetically what we are. And that frustrates the world, but it flatters the world, it admires, it amuses the world. So we just got to accept it, that who we are and what we can do and what we've been through. And like you said, that free service has not been seen like that. 400 years of you are not a human, you are an animal. But at night, I'll treat you like a human.
Say it one more time.
So you're not a human, you're an animal on paper, but at night I'll treat you like a human. Not only at night, I'll commensurate with you when no one's looking, and I'll say, you know what, I saw how you executed that. You know, you're pretty smart, huh? And so I'll get my jollies off of my insecurity jollies off with you. And so these type of things, these were the things that existed on these nut farms. You know what I'm saying? These were farms that had all types of grotesque things going on, and I'm not just talking sex, drugs, and rock and roll. It was the most horrible aspects of humanity. When you talk about insecurities and you talk about depravity of human beings, but yet and still, despite it, we weren't crushed like some other nations, some other peoples. So our exceptionality is without question. It's just, are we going to prevail? What source are we going to use to allow us to prevail? Because that's God given. That's God given. We are here and sent here for a reason. We will not be ashamed. I know my family won't, and my brothers and my sister and my kinsmen won't. We won't be ashamed of how we utilize God's tools.
And when you say his tools, it goes back to being able to just say, you know, like the noble Drew Ali, the prophet, taught us right before he left. And he stated that every man should worship up under his own vine and fig tree, for a measure would seem is right up under himself. And that means everybody has a choice to do what he or she wants to do. That's one of the so-called gifts that we have until you cross the line and propose a threat to the powers that be. But until that time, everyone has a choice and a selection to do whatever it is that he or she wants to do. As I say, it's in my heart, and I have to be able to give it back. Because when we start to speak, and here in the next week we'll jump on the topics of how the Great War was staged.
All right, on our way out, how it was staged?
How the Great War was staged when the towers were knocked down, because this was something that needed to be finished up when the senior was in office and couldn't get done. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The ties with the Soviet Union and all of this. You got to understand why the Soviet Union comes into a very big play right now today.
Yeah.
But the reason that we knew certain people had weapons of mass destruction is because we knew who gave the weapons. But we'll speak to that on a later date.
Yeah.
We do want to say it is that time. Man, an hour goes fast. As I always say, boy, if it could go this fast when I was at work.
Yeah.
Man, we want to thank all the people that were listening. We apologize, and I apologize if I may have hurt the feelings of some of the people, but I'm going to always speak the truth. I will bear the cross for a lot of my people when it comes to getting out this knowledge, and I do everything I do because I'm paying homage to the people that taught me, my grandmas, the old school way of life. We see right now that this new world that we're living in, August 27th, 2018, is not working for us. It's not going to work for us. And the only way that we're going to be able to have some peace, not an artificial peace, is we have to get rid of the peace breaker to introduce the peacemaker. So I want to say thank you all for joining us and paying attention to us this week, and you can take us out.
You know, what just keeps coming to my mind is greater love hath no man than having one who would lay down his life for them. And you think about this kinship, brotherhood, sisterhood. I'm going to try to be as precise as possible. It really was just a blessing to see. My wife got to go out and hang out, and she had a couple days where she got to know, and I got to see women around her who really looked at her as a sister. I really feel that they have, and what it takes to protect that, and what kind of community it takes to protect that. I just, on that note, just say that, hey, we do this for y'all. I don't know a whole lot, don't profess to know a whole lot, but I diligently just seek ways to be able to grow a community around me that's going to be healthy enough, to teach my children and assist them in this thing called life. So, again, thank you for tuning in tonight. It was a pleasure to be here with you. And again, we do this for y'all.
All right. That it?